Good afternoon. It is Wednesday, March 16th, 2022, and it's 3:07. The Senate Education, Finance, and Policy Committee will come to order. We do have a quorum. We have three bills on, well, four bills. One is just a, we're going to move it over to, I'm up, aren't I? Oh, God. I missed it again. We have four. One will be just moving a bill over to finance with an amendment. So with that, I have the first bill up, Senate File, here I am, Senate File 3956. I'll turn the gavel over to Senator Eichhorn. Thank you.
Senator Chamberlain, to Senate File 3956, do you have any amendments? I don't see any in the packet, but I just want to make sure the bill's in the proper order.
Mr. Chair, members, no amendments.
All right, to the bill.
Senate File 3956 is a continuation of something that started a few years ago. Lead testing and remediation requirements, making some changes to the existing bill, existing statute. As you see in your packet, plan must include recommendations. Now we're changing the level. There before, previously, as you see again in the legislation that exists, there was no prescribed level to start measuring and working with. This goes from no designation to above 5 parts per billion of lead in the water, in any water source. And you can also see after completing remediation services, the schools are supposed to continue testing and advising the commissioner of the status. And finally, we're removing a lot of obsolete language under the long-term facilities maintenance revenue statutes. There's a lot of stuff in there pertaining back to 2017, 2018 that doesn't apply anymore, obviously. And that, in a nutshell, is the bill. That's a pretty high summary, but there is an existing statute for this. We're putting an actual benchmark on it, and then requiring some additional testing and then a report up to the commissioner. Now, there is an amendment that the House put on for changing a little bit of language, but also some dollar amounts to it. I don't want to put that on today. I want to look at it some more, and this bill is going to go to HHS. That's the final stop. So we can make those changes and talk about dollar amounts and get a better feel of that later. So, Mr. Chair and members, that is the bill.
Thank you, Senator Chamberlain. I just had one. So on the dollars, would that be a mechanism to help schools fix the problem should they find lead?
Right.
Okay.
Yes,
perfect.
Mr. Chair, that's correct. I mean, in the last couple of years, we don't want to do unfunded mandates. So part of this is we're not going to do this unless we can get a few bucks to them to cover remediation and/or testing. So that's kind of the key here.
Perfect, thank you. Any additional questions from committee members? I'm seeing Senator Uyghur.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Chamberlain, for bringing this forward. A couple questions. First, I believe the appropriation is blank for the tribal schools, and any thoughts as to what that amount might be if this is going to go to finance?
Senator Chamberlain.
Mr. Chair, Senator Uyghur, thanks. I was looking at their amendment, and it deleted sub 6, which is that whole, page 6, that's sub 2, deleted that whole amount, that whole section, and put in the dollar amounts. And I was looking for an inclusion of the tribal schools. I didn't see that, so that's some clarification I had to get on on the amendment and how that works in with the tribal schools, because we have a line item here, and I didn't see it in this, and maybe it is here somewhere in their amendment, but I didn't see it initially, so I want to look at that and work on that.
Senator Uyghur?
Good. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Senator Chamberlain. And I was wondering, it'll be posted results on a website, and is there any thought as to the parent's right to know and how that would get to the parent?
Senator Chamberlain?
Well, I haven't thought about that specifically, but of course, that is part of this process. I mean, if this is going on, I think, as we've been talking about, quite a bit, is that if something is happening in school, I believe most districts are working on ensuring that parents are informed of these things. I think you had that last year. Is that what you're kind of referring to, that a right to know sort of provision? So that would be our belief, that parents would have a right to know the status of all these things in the school and where they're at with lead testing. How
Yes,
that
sir.
is done exactly, I'm not sure.
Mr.
Senator Uyghur, I'm
Yeah.
hearing from staff, you might want to check out section, or page 2, 2.32. That'll be on, looks like the Department of Health's website by school district. So if that's helpful to the previous question, that's it. If you have additional, go ahead.
Yes, yeah, Mr. Chair, I did see that, and I'm not sure how many, parents are triaging that website on a
Yeah,
regular
yeah.
basis, but in terms of the reference that you made, Senator Chamberlain, yeah, we did, in a bipartisan way, pass the right to know notification of environmental hazards in the context of TCE, trichloroethylene, and rather than read the provision, it's in 121A.336. And, and this is a work in progress. Again, I strongly support the underlying bill on the additional testing, and having this in a plan. The statute that we supported together also points out that if it's a non-public school, there's this notice as well. So something to think about. There are lead issues. Yeah, they don't pick public or non-public in terms of where there may be this problem. Many times it could be an older building, charter schools faced with that. So, additional thoughts, as this progresses, happy to work with you in any way I can.
I don't see any other questions, so Senator Chamberlain, any closing comments?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Senator Uyghur, yeah, we can do that. That's no problem. Just an oversight and deal with this money piece in HHS. So thank you, members, for the time, and hope this is one that makes it through.
All right, with that, Senator Chamberlain moves that Senate File 3956 do here pass the committee and be sent to the Committee on Health and Human Services, Finance, and Policy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion does prevail, and you're on to HHS, Finance, and Policy. Next up, we're going to have Senator Duckworth with Senate File 3745.
Okay, Senator Duckworth, Senate File 3745. I don't see any amendments. That's correct?
No amendments, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so you may proceed any time you want.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. Greatly appreciate it. Senate File 3745 provides flexibility between non-public schools and school districts regarding transportation services. It would permit, not require, transportation agreements between public and non-public schools in the future, so that even if public schools again close or for some other unforeseen reason or circumstance were to arise, non-public students could continue to receive rides to their schools. This mutually beneficial flexibility was utilized when the Safe Learning Plan was in effect during the peacetime emergency order during the 2020-2021 school year. Once the peacetime emergency order was lifted, the safe learning plan was no longer in effect, and this flexibility was no longer available to school districts and non-public schools. This legislation would allow for this flexibility to be available permanently if both the school district and non-public school mutually agreed. This legislation will ensure that public schools receive non-public pupil transportation aid when they are providing transportation to non-public students, even if they are not providing such transportation to their own students because of a public school closure. With that being said, Mr. Chair, I do have a couple of folks who are here to testify today and would love to turn it over to them, please.
Okay, first on the list, I have Father Ralph Talbot. Oh, no, here, Jason Adkins.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I'm Jason Adkins, Executive Director of the Minnesota Catholic Conference, the public policy voice of the Catholic Church in Minnesota. We're here today to support Senate File 3745 and are grateful to Senator Duckworth for bringing this forward. Minnesota Statute Section 123B40 clarifies an important principle of education policy in this state, which is to provide certain forms of aid to all students, irrespective of their attendance at public, independent, or home schools. That includes counseling aid, textbooks, nursing services, and transportation aid, among other things. The statute notes that the goal is to establish equity in certain state educational benefits and to promote among all Minnesota pupils greater freedom of choice in education. School districts administer the transportation aid and provide busing services to non-public school students in their district. This works well in many places. Sometimes, however, non-public schools are required to change their start times on an annual basis to accommodate for differences in public school times, or are stuck with whatever bus routes are offered to them, which may require them to start as late as mid-morning. As you will hear from our other testifiers, this makes creating stability in a school culture difficult and may inhibit some families from attending their choice of school altogether. The pandemic exacerbated the problem of non-public school students accessing their transportation aid when busing services were shut down while public schools were not holding class in person, but private schools were. Fortunately, during the time the Safe Learning Plan was in effect and with the consent of the school district, MDE allowed non-public schools to work directly with the busing companies to arrange transportation for students. But once the peacetime emergency order was lifted, the Safe Learning Plan was no longer in effect, and it is unclear whether this flexibility is still available to school districts and non-public schools who mutually agree. Furthermore, virtual learning is likely here to stay. Concerns about virus outbreaks remain, and events such as teacher strikes underscore the importance of ensuring flexibility for districts and non-public schools in providing transportation services to which non-public school students are entitled. Therefore, this legislation makes permanent what was already policy during the peacetime emergency order. By mutual agreement, school districts and non-public schools may create an alternative transportation arrangement for transporting non-public school students. Specifically, Senate File 3745 outlines options for this voluntary arrangement if the school district is contracting for bus and transportation services, or if the school district uses employees to provide those transportation services. Again, this legislation would allow for this flexibility to be available permanently only if both the school district and non-public school mutually agree. Please support this important reform, which will be beneficial to students and districts alike. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Adkins. Next on the list, now I have Father Ralph Talbot. Welcome to the committee.
Mr. Chair and members of the committee, I'm Father Ralph Talbot, the pastor of St. Mary of the Lake in White Bear Lake and moderator of Rarick Catholic Academy. It's a pre-K to 8th grade school located here in White Bear Lake. I'm grateful for the opportunity to testify here in support of Senate File 3745. I've served as the pastor at St. Mary of the Lake since July 1st, 2011, overseeing first St. Mary of the Lake School and now Rarick Catholic Academy. During my 9 years of time here at White Bear Lake, and for many years prior to that time, our transportation agreement with White Bear School District allowed our school day to begin at 7:35 a.m. and end at 2:10. In the fall of 2020, we began in person while White Bear Lake remained in distance learning because of COVID. Our parents dropped off their students in the morning and picked them up in the afternoon. When the district resumed in-person learning, the district transportation plan allowed us to maintain our morning bus schedule, but our afternoon pickup changed to 3:15, and our staff and students and families adjusted, recognizing the challenges presented by COVID. In the spring of 2021, the district announced a new multi-tier transportation policy for the upcoming year. That policy was informed by research demonstrating the importance of young people starting school early. Sadly, despite that research, the district offered the families of Versati transportation that would move our start time from 7:35 to 9:35 and our afternoon pickup from 2:10 to 4 p.m. That schedule went against the research for the new policy. So that schedule was not good for our students and not good for our working parents. Therefore, we met with school officials, district officials, to find a better solution. We proposed alternative start and end time, but we're told no. We asked about working with a different transportation company and having the district reimburse us, and we're told no. And of course, we were aware of a lack of bus drivers at the time as well. Therefore, for this current school year, we have parents driving their children to school for the 7:30 a.m. start time and picking them up at 2:10. We have approximately 10 middle school students who stay after school until the district picks them up between 3:50 and 4:20. We also have several K to 6th grade children who must pay for extended day because of the transportation schedule. And we've lost at least one family who's not able to work with that transportation schedule. For this upcoming 22-23 school year, we have approximately 180 K-8 students who will be eligible for district transportation. We've met with the district about transportation for the upcoming year, and we're sadly told once again that we would be on the late routes. Therefore, we want the flexibility offered by Senate File 3745 to work with the district to make our own arrangements so that the district, the children of Versati, have the same schedule and the best learning environment as do the great majority of other young people in the district. Thank you.
Thank you, Father Talbot. And last is that story, Shane Hoffer. Welcome, Mr. Hoffer. Please state your name and who you're with for the record. You may start.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, thank you. My name is Shane Hofer, and I'm here to testify in support of Senate File 3745. And before I begin, Senator Uyghur, just wanted to congratulate you on your coming retirement and thank you for your decades of service to Minnesota, including to our district. So I come before you today as a White Bear Lake dad. My beautiful wife, Mindy, and I are expecting our 8th baby to come this June. The story I'll tell begins in the fall of 2020. At that point, Mindy and I had 3 of our children attending Versati in grades K through 7, the 4th in preschool. And I want to mention this is a school that it took us years to figure out how to attend, a place we felt called to spiritually, academically, and for a number of reasons, and was ultimately the source of uncounted blessings in our lives. We knew that the next year, which was to be this year, 21-22, we would have 4 of our kids in grades K through 8. We embraced the plan, financial sacrifice and all. Enrollment was done by February last year. We paid our dues, our fees, and looked forward to another year at Versati. But when the school district announced these transportation plans, everything changed for us. You see, to make all this work, we depended on busing for our children to attend Versati. And in order to avoid all of the things that you've already heard Father and Mr. Adkins describe, Versati had to make changes, and busing wouldn't be available in any semblance of the form of transportation and busing routes in times that you'd find at any public school you can name. So for us, it broke our back. Mindy and I were forced to unenroll our children from Versati and leave the place that we really truly sought to be, simply because Versati had no flexibility to look beyond the local school district. The legislative remedy proposed today would have prevented any of this turmoil from affecting our family, and that's why I'm asking you today to support Senate File 3745. Thank you all for the opportunity to testify and for your service to Minnesota.
Thank you, Mr. Hofer. It's when I first heard about this issue, maybe it was pre-session, I found it odd that they couldn't do it already, that they couldn't contract and manage that on their own. So this is, that's the way this system works sometimes, unfortunately. Anyway, members, any questions? Senator Kunish?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Maybe somebody can explain to me why school districts or bus and their transportation can't accommodate, and why we need this legislation.
Senator Duckworth?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Kunish, for the question. Essentially, this allows for more freedom and flexibility for school districts to enter into agreements for non-public schools, so that if there is a need and they can agree upon it mutually, the school district can utilize their transportation services to some of these non-public students to get to the schools that they're attending. It was allowed during the pandemic. This would make it so that school districts and these non-public schools, only if they both agree to it, could enter into these arrangements moving forward and have it be beneficial to the school district as well.
Senator Kunish?
Yep, just for clarification, so right now, public schools cannot enter agreements with non-public schools to perhaps have another bus or another bus form of transportation, is that correct?
Senator Duckworth?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Kunish. My understanding is that other than in the absence of the executive order which allowed for this, it is not. And that's the reason for this legislation, would be to allow for them, per state statute, to enter into these agreements should they both agree to it.
And then
Senator
just
Kunish?
follow up. Yep. Some of the language in here is pretty passive, such as may retain the non-public transportation aid attributed to the plan, and a non-public school may make a payment to the school district to cover additional transportation services agreed in the written plan, and so on. And then again, a non-public school may make the payment to the school district. And that just feels a little uncertain. So perhaps a non-public school could decide not to make that payment to the public school system. And that gives me a little bit of worry. I would like a little more certainty that even though there is an agreement and maybe a contract signed in some way, I think it would really behoove this bill and this legislation, and it protects both the non-pub and the public schools to have affirmative language where the expectation of meeting both of those obligations is here in the legislature.
Senator Duckworth?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Kunish. Great point, very valid. I think the word may is used very purposely, though, as opposed to shall or must, to afford the school districts and the non-public schools maximum flexibility regarding whatever agreement or arrangement they were to construct between each other. And of course, as you mentioned, whether or not payments are required or must be done would be spelled out in any written agreement or contract they were to enter into together. Oftentimes, I'm from Lakeville. We've got a Catholic school in Lakeville, and ISD 194, which are Lakeville schools, and All Saints, the Catholic school in town, they work together very harmoniously in partnership. And what we don't want to do is require them to have to do things by state statute that they otherwise maybe wouldn't do. And they can spell it out in their own agreement should they choose to do so, especially if it were to come to transportation arrangements. So your point's valid, and I would expect them to iron out details like that in the contract that both of them would review and enter into mutually.
Thank you.
Thanks. Anything else, members? Yes, Senator Uyghur.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And Senator Duckworth, I do support the proposal. I did want to amplify, though, on Senator Kunish's point at, 1.15. I think if it said instead of may, shall, and then, and we don't have to do it now, council can further look at this, and then in line 1.16, insert if mutually agreed to. We're talking about an agreement that is, where there's an agreement, then you wouldn't may pay, you would pay if it's mutually agreed to. But this has a journey, but support it. I also wanted to thank Mr. Hofer, for his comments, and also thank him for his leadership for the local YMCA. And he has just been a great leader in the community, bringing people together. And thank you.
Okay, Senator, thank you, Senator Uyghur. Senator Duckworth, wrapping up?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And members, I appreciate the questions and any and all feedback to try to improve the bill. That being said, I appreciate the opportunity to present it, and that's all I have, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, members, with that, oh, this will go to general orders. All right, with that, I had to be reminded. So Senator Duckworth, we're going to send this to GO. So with that, Senate File 3745 is approved and sent to general orders. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? All right. General orders. Thank you, Senator Duckworth. Thank you, testifiers. Thank you, Senator Duckworth. All right, next up is Senate File 495, Senator Rarick. Good afternoon, Senator Rarick. Senate File 495, you have an author's amendment, I understand?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chair.
So changing some dates.
Correct.
Pulling forward. So members, author's amendment A1, you should have in your packets. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. All right, Senator Rarick, let us know what you got.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, Senate File 495 is a pretty straightforward bill. It would propose a prohibition of any school buildings being built on a landfill site or a dump site. This is here before us today because of what I would call the relentless work of my testifier. He has been doing incredible research and studying and on us here at the legislature to move on this, and he can explain it far better than I can, so I would turn it over to my testifier, Mr. Leno.
All right, welcome the committee. Please state your name and who you're with for the record. You may begin.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair, for allowing me to speak. My name is Larry Lanou. I just left the, it's a little different format here than what I just left a little earlier in the House. We just passed
Yes, we're
it.
much better over here, obviously.
Pardon?
We're much better over here, obviously.
Well, it is a different format. I had a little trouble getting on the computer, and you've made it really simple for us today. That being said, it passed 19-0 in the House over there, so I want to thank that body also. So I'd like to start out by saying that I first got involved in the need for this legislation after I received a phone call from my daughter informing me that my grandson had a compromised immune system and that his condition may be terminal. I hope that no parent or grandparent will ever have to get that call. I can assure that when it's your family member, you will not feel like it's a statistic nor a coincidence. And that is what still drives my passion to get this bill passed today. I know some of you've maybe confused my passion for being a little pushy, and I apologize for that. As an elected government official, your sworn duty is to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public. Currently, Minnesota regulations prohibit toxic landfills from being permitted next to a school. Now it's the time to pass legislation preventing schools from being built next to a toxic dump sites. Note, current standards for schools use industrial scale, which are 10 times residential scale for acceptable levels of toxins. Your child should be as safe at school as they are at home. It's a parent's right to know about potential risk associated with schools sited on land that exceeds residential standards. And these standards are set by the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, so we have a measurable document that we can go off of. First off, this bipartisan bill provides prevention of a cancerous environment whenever possible, awareness of the hidden dangers once determined that a human risk exists, the opportunity for early detection comes with the knowledge of one's surrounding. Children's bodies are more sensitive than adults. Children are less able to handle toxic chemical exposures. Children breathe more, eat more per pound than adults. Now, what exercise and precaution in the siting of schools will prevent is it will prevent future financial losses in terms of decreased students' IQs, increases in injuries and illness among children and employees, and increased potential for lawsuits costing facilities much-needed education dollars. There is no government agency that will accept liability for citing a school near a toxic dump site. If you read it, it says that we hold harmless and they accept no liability. Public schools insurance policies also exclude liability from pollution. If this bill is passed, it will only affect schools exceeding residential levels of toxins established by the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, the Department of Health, and which is to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the children and staff. Aaron Brockovich said it best. You may live on top of or attend a school located on top of a Superfund site, being exposed to chemical exposure without your knowledge. This exposure may not show the disease process for 20 years, but nobody's coming back monitoring you. In fact, the Department of Health doesn't monitor the students and staff as they have illnesses in schools at this point. So we expect our children to clean up their bedrooms. I think it's time we can clean up some of these sites and give the awareness. Had my daughter known that some of these toxins exceeded and she knew that she had a compromised immune system, she would have had the opportunity to make a choice, send her child in another location. So this time I'd ask that this body pass this bill on to the next committee so that it can be passed in a timely fashion. And I want to thank you for your opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Lanou. Next up, sir, welcome to the committee. Please state your name and who you're with for the record, and you may begin.
Mr. Chair and committee members, my name is Wayne Sarapo, and I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak in favor of Senate File 495. I've been retired now for 4 years from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, where I've worked for 35 years. And while at the MPCA, I worked mainly in the state and federal Superfund programs and also the voluntary investigation and cleanup program. And because of my work at the state, and one of the many reasons that I support this bipartisan, well-written bill is because of my many years working to clean up the contaminated soil and water of the state of Minnesota. As you all know, it is extremely difficult and time-consuming and expensive to remove contaminants from the groundwater. I believe that this bill provides strong legislation which will help prevent future contamination of our groundwater, surface water, and soil. Most importantly, however, it provides for the safety of our school-age children while also ensuring that the parents and/or guardians of their school-age children will be notified of any sources of contamination on or near their school. This will also have the added benefit of addressing any right-to-know issues that concerned parents and/or guardians may have. I would like to use an example from my own city of Grant, which I think will be illustrative of what happens in the absence of such a bill as this. This information has been provided by former Minnesota State Representative Barbara Hockey, who has also served as a board member of the Minnesota Association of Watershed Districts, as well as a board member of the Rice Creek Watershed District. Her letter is included in your information packet and is summarized as follows. Ms. Hockey stated that as a former Rice Creek Watershed District member, she sat on the board as the committee approved permits that she felt placed our children at risk over her expressed objections. The Rice Creek Watershed District approved of the placement of water and sewer lines which passed through contaminated soil in the former Bel Air sanitation dump site, which is now the location of the Wildwood Elementary School. It is strongly suspected that these utility lines provided a conduit for contamination from the dump site to flow into Lost Lake, thereby resulting in Lost Lake being placed on the list of impaired waters of the state. It is Ms. Hockey's contention that this approval was granted because she thinks that too often agencies such as the MPCA, DNR, Minnesota Department of Health, plus watershed districts only review and approve areas within proposed projects that are clearly under their respective jurisdictions and without consulting other agencies. Had the Rice Creek Watershed District, for example, consulted with the MPCA on this issue, steps could have been taken to prevent the potential transport of contamination into the lake. Therefore, we believe that this bill, when passed, will prevent such problems from occurring because all state, county, local government officials, along with environmental consultants and concerned citizens, will know of its passage and will adhere to its provisions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I do have a question, Senator Rarick. Are there currently schools in the state of Minnesota on or near a dump site within a quarter mile, or on a dump site or a landfill? Do you know?
Turn it over to
Listen,
Mike.
Leno?
Yes, Chair. We reference a site, it's called People Investigating Toxic School Sites. Ironically, California is the largest number of schools next to dump sites. And according to that study, Minnesota is the second largest in the nation.
I'm sorry, Mr. Leno, with dump sites or schools within a quarter mile of landfills or dump sites?
Yes, that's what they're saying. Schools within, that site that have toxic sites, that schools are placed that have, been determined as hazardous. That being said, we realize that by placing this dimension out there, it'll prevent schools from being built, running utility lines and extending the further, because most of these sites that are out there, the example Wayne references is in the city of Grant. They currently have a conditional use permit allowing another building to be put on there and without an environmental impact statement, although being requested by the environmental consulting agency that did the work. So oftentimes we have the city councils working very closely with the school districts, and they tend to overlook some of the requirements and protections to get their projects approved. This legislation would prevent some of that closeness. Most of the information is available by the Minnesota pollution agencies. It's already, most dump sites have been closed and the documentation is there. So we're looking at them to set the standards as far as the residential standards. So yes, there's about 12 in Minnesota. So the annual notification can simply be done. I could have brought it up, but I recently received a deal in the mail today. It's called the Globe. It's sent out 4 times a year. So simply that takes care of the annual notification by mail. So we feel there'll be no real fiscal note on this bill, as most of the information that schools would have to do, they have already to do and paid for when they went out to get their bond to build these schools. And any buildings over $500,000, I think statute requires them to get a phase 1 or phase 2 study. And if toxins are found, it directs them to go on to have an environmental awareness worksheet.
So, Mr. Leno, you said in the state of Minnesota, there's currently 12 schools that would fall within that quarter mile reporting requirement?
Yes.
That's it, wait.
Mr.
That's good.
Chair.
That's all I need, 12. I just needed 12. So there's 12 in Minnesota on or near. And then secondly, do you know that if are these schools currently reporting or tracking, do you know?
I don't believe they are, sir. I think when this bill first came in front of you guys several years ago, Senator Greg Clausen, he asked me the very same question. He says, Larry, am I safe? I took him that same study was there, and it said Sunnyside Elementary. He said, geez, he said, my aunt taught there. She said she died early of cancer. She said, and 4 other members of that the staff working there also died prematurely of cancer. And he says, yes, I will co-author that bill for you today. And he did sign on. Actually, it was the same year that, sir, that you also co-authored the bill. So remember, this bill only requires notification if toxins exceed residential levels. So in their notification, they can describe what toxins may exceed residential levels. It may describe that they put out there what they've done to take care of them. And if they take the opportunity and the toxins no longer exist, they're not required to report it. So it just gives them the awareness of it, and then maybe they can find funding if they find out it's real. Good example is Sunnyside Elementary, which we are talking about, was close to the Bell Pole and Lumber, where they treated telephone poles and used creosote out there. So some of those, Senator, I'm sure you're aware of out there. It's simply, if you looked at the site that's out there today in Matamidi, it's a brand new school, you would have never known it was a Superfund.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Senator Knudsen, did you? All right. Anybody else have a question? Senator Cwodzinski.
So, thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have a question. The whole part of this bill from 110 through 121, if a school district is within 1/4 mile of a dump site, and you say there's 12, and I do think one of them may be in my district, that someone for the district has to compile all this data and notify all the community members that attend that school and the kids and the staff. So that is somewhat of a burden on the school. I mean, I don't know how many hours of work that would be, but it's a lot of work for somebody in the administration. I just want to, you have given that some thought, I assume, and anyways, I just wanted to make note of that. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Cwodzinski. Anyone else? All right, Senator Rarick, you want to wrap up?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for hearing the bill. We appreciate it, and we look forward to moving on to our next committee.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Senator Rarick. Thank you, testifiers. So this is going to go to Environment and Finance and Policy from here. So members, Senate File 495, as amended, is recommended to pass and move on to Environment and Policy Committee. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Unanimous. Thank you very much, everybody. And last but not least, Senator Cwodzinski, you have a little assignment here.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have an oral amendment.
So what we have is Senate File 3052. We are going to vote to take it off the table. It was laid over. Okay. And then we have Senator Cwodzinski has an oral amendment. We want to vote to pass it out to Finance. So we are going to take A3, we're going to take Senate File 3052 off the table, or put it up again. Now, so Senator Cwodzinski, 3552, you had an oral amendment?
I do, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
The A1.
You have an oral amendment that's an A1?
A3.
No.
A3.
You have an oral amendment that's A3. Okay, what you got, Senator Cwodzinski?
I'd like to refer to Ms. Joseph, if she wouldn't mind speaking to this.
She will. Welcome, Ms. Jilseth. You want to tell us what this oral amendment is? Senator Cwodzinski spoke to you. You spoke to Senator Cwodzinski about this oral amendment, and can you tell us what it's about?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. So this is just an oral amendment for the eighth. It's going to amend the A2, which was adopted last time we heard this bill. So from the A2 amendment, this A3 would delete the 23,137 on page 1, line 9, and insert the 23,145. So it just changes that equalization factor to make this bill levy neutral in the tails.
Everybody, members, everybody understand that? All right, so it's change the dollar amount a little bit so that it has zero impact on the levy. All right, members, all in favor of the oral amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, unanimous. Thank you, Ms. Gilsa. So with that, now we're going to vote on moving the bill to finance. So Senator Cwodzinski will move that Senate File 3052 as amended be approved and passed along to Senate Finance Committee. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. So remember, that concludes our business today. We will have, I think, a couple bills on Monday, but we're going to wrap up soon. So, but we will have something on Monday. All right? Any final questions? Okay, good. We are adjourned.